Have you ever looked at a photo and thought to yourself, wow, this image really pops? Well, in today's video, we're going to cover 3 easy ways for you to be able to make your images pop and really make your subjects stand out. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Before we jump into this video, do me a huge favor and consider hitting that like button down below and subscribing to the channel. It helps me out, it helps out the channel, and I really appreciate it. Now let's get into it. So now we have Lightroom loaded up here, and the first thing you're going to notice is I've already made some of my changes. I've done all of the basic changes like exposure, highlights, shadows, texture, clarity, vibrance, and saturation. I've also gone ahead and done my tone curve adjustments, all of my HSL and color adjustments, and I've even done a little bit of color grading. So you want to make sure you have that basic editing done on your image before we move ahead and do the rest. So although this image is pretty good, I just feel that it needs a little something more. So what we can do here is go into masking, and now thanks to Lightroom's new AI tool, we're actually able to select a subject, and that will automatically identify your subject. Now, it has selected some parts that aren't the subject, but for the sake of time, I won't go into removing all of those, but you can do that just by clicking on the little profile here and then hit remove from mask and do what you need to do. So in our particular case, once I've selected this, what I like to do is actually hit invert. So we select everything but our subject. And from there, what I'll end up doing is lowering the exposure. Sometimes I'll even increase or decrease the contrast depending on what I'm going for. If I want it to be darker or brighter, I actually prefer it on the decreased end. The highlights in this case, I'll want to keep low, kind of sticks with that moody, dark, rainy tone. And I will make all of the adjustments accordingly. But the idea is to be able to really make a separation between what's happened in the back and what's happened in the front. So in my case, the bright yellow at the front would stand out more against a contrasted dark background. That's my style, that's the look I like, and you can obviously do what you prefer as well. Once you've made these changes, you have the ability to select any color temperatures. You also have the ability to go through and change any detail that you might have, but usually this is about the extent of it. Now what we can do is go to the before and after, and what we're able to do is see how this image looked when it first came in and how it looks now after a few small changes. Now, most of these are due to the original color grading, but you're able to really make the subject stand out that much more by separating the background from what's in front of you. So now for the second method. It's probably the most powerful method out of all of them, but it requires the most restraint because of this. If we overdo it, we're gonna ruin the image entirely. And there's one extremely important thing that has to be done in order for this to work, and that's that the background must be a different color from the actual subject. And the reason for that is when we hop into Lightroom, the way we're gonna draw all our attention and focus to that subject is actually by desaturating the background. So if we go down into the HSL tab, I can see my background has some green, some yellow, and some orange. And if we go into the orange tab and reduce the saturation, you can see it start to leave in the background there. And if we do it a touch, move into our yellow, repeat the process, and then move into the green and also do the same, you can see we've essentially pulled all of the color out. Now, if you overkill it, you'll just be left with this. And although that may be something you'd like to do, it's not what I personally like. So I'm going to put some color back into this one. And once I do, what I do want to do is lower the actual brightness of those colors in the back. And that will just allow the color in the front to really pop. And since the front is mostly purple and magenta, what I'll be doing is increasing the luminance so that we get a little bit of a brighter front to the image. And the purple, I'm gonna have to say I'll decrease it a touch just to sort of really keep those details and not give too much highlight. And you are left with an image looked a little something like this. On the left we have the before, we did our edits, we reduced our background color, and now we are looking at something that is much more vibrant or in front of you. And if the colors aren't as bright as you want them to be, you can always go back and now increase the exposure of that image to achieve whatever look it is that you're going for. Lastly, we have my personal favorite. It's the one I use the most, it's the one I enjoy using, and I find it's the one that gets the best results overall for what I like to do. So once again, I've gone ahead and adjusted all my sliders to be exactly where I want them to be, but I still really need this subject to pop. And when there isn't an obvious subject in the middle, that's a lot harder to achieve. So what I like to do is go back to masking, and I actually use a combination of linear and radial gradients. In this case, the first thing I know I want to do is use a linear gradient because I want the left side of this image to actually come in a little bit darker because I'm finding it too bright. So I drag it over I'm going to bring the exposure down to start and maybe a little bit of the highlights. And then I'm going to play around with that just to see where it gets the look I'm going for. I don't want to lose all of the image on the left, but I want to lose a lot of the highlight that was once there. So I am going to knock that to a little bit darker, but not too dark, because I also want to add a radial gradient. And now with the radial gradient, I'm going to use that to draw the attention of the viewer to a certain point of the image. For me, it's that staircase in the middle. So what I'm going to do is invert this as well, and then bring the overall darkness of the image down. Now I'm realizing as I do that, it's not giving me the look I'm going for. So maybe what it is more so highlights. I want it to stay bright, but I just want to subtly bring the attention in, not dramatic like this, but something a bit more cold, dark, but not quite too dark. It's really difficult to do because the inside here is already so dark. So what I'm going to do is leave that where it is, and then I might just add one more mask, in this case another radial gradient, in the exact same area, but this time attempting to brighten up that middle component, but not too much, because I do feel the dark in there gives it the look we're going for. So now we have an image that takes us from here to here, or if you want to compare it from left to right, we have a lot more of a darker tone kind of setting us in towards that staircase, and that's effectively what I'm looking to go for. And this is a great way to be able to add visual contrast to different parts of your image, whether you do it through exposure, whether you do it through saturation and color. It's totally up to you, but this is definitely my favorite choice, and a lot of other photographers I've spoken with and work with love to use this method as well. If you've stuck around to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you. And if you found this really helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me out a lot, it helps out the channel, and maybe leave a like on the video and comment down below what you want to see next. See you in the next video.